Do it, do it, do it. Let's see if we can fix it. Now, what kind of a system is this? This is the most gummed up mess you've ever seen. Hi, what's going on? As you can see, I got boxes and shit. I just cannot get myself figured out. I can't figure out the Christmas stuff. I tried it yesterday and I started feeling depressed. I picked up this one little hand-carved cane my father-in-law made us, and I just was overcome with some kind of ghostly thing. I thought I saw an apparition of some shit, ghost of lingering Christmas or something, like the lazy ass cousin that will not get his ass out. You know, he just wants to sit there and watch King of the Hill reruns. That's what Christmas is for me this year. And he will not stop. He will not stop haunting this house. I'm not offering him a roast. I'm not making his favorite chili. There's some Ritz crackers and, you know, some Kraft cheese in the fridge. You can help yourself. Eventually, you're going to have to leave here. And I want you to know that. That's what I'm doing with Christmas this year. Listen, you don't know me. You guys don't know me from Adam. My name's Andi Marie. Maybe you know me. Maybe you've seen me on TikTok. Maybe you know me as Pawpaw. Or you've heard me say shit ass a million times. And in that regard, it'll be on brand. Feels like I should have some kind of an opening song, you know. It's like, na da da, this is the Andi Show, talking about things that she doesn't know much about. This is the Andi Show, oh no, we don't know anything about anything, nothing. That right there at the end, that is when we couldn't afford to get the whole song paid for. There at the end, those are like the Big Lots carolers. Here we are. Let's start. Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. You want to jump right into it? Let's get existential. We want to get into black holes. Maybe this show should be called Black Holes and Buttholes. I feel like that kind of summarizes my brand. It started with my parents. Okay? My mom's crazier than a bed bug. I mean, my dad is too. And they're lovely people, but they're crazy. We all have our own kind of issues. But I think that they're lovely people. Either that or I have severe Stockholm syndrome that has never been resolved. Because I never, you know, stayed with a therapist for more than like 6 months at a time. They bored me after that. But collectively, between them, I think I've had probably, 3 years. I think that a lot of my oddness comes from the fact that my parents had me when they were in their 40s. And you got to understand, that doesn't seem as weird now. But A, that was in the 90s, and B, that was in Scott County, Tennessee, by God. Okay? And in Scott County, that's about 70. That's about like having a child at 70 years old. It's some serious Jane Austen shit where, she's 27, I think, without prospects, Elizabeth Bennet. And it's just, when you're 40, you hadn't popped out the kid, the future's looking bleak. And especially for my mom, because she had my brother, my only sibling. She had my brother when she was 17. She was pregnant with him at 16, had him at 17. So she's got all this trauma from that, where she kind of got kicked out. I mean, she got kicked out of her parents' home. She married this man. It was an odd situation, to say the very least. Also, she was ostracized from her community because she was a gospel singer, right? And then she marries my dad at 25. Nobody thought that was going to last because she had already been married 3 times before that. These are all things that if we got any listeners, we'll unpack it. If you want to come into this white trash soiree, then, stay tuned. My dad married her. He was 24. She was 25. And they waited until she was 40 to have a kid because they were financially stable at that point, and she had some fertility issues that weren't solved until then. We kind of, I don't know, it felt like, looking back on it, we were probably a little culty. Now, that might sound strange to you all if you're no fun. But we were very close, the three of us. We were the three amigos. That's how I refer to us, the three amigos, bopping around. I loved our Pizza Hut nights where we would watch ER together. I kind of did everything with them, and I didn't want to be around people my age because people my age were unpredictable. I wasn't used to that. I was used to being around 40-somethings, 50-somethings. And so I remember my years in school, my first years in school were hard. I didn't like having to leave my mom, and kids were unpredictable to me. It felt like high stakes. I wanted kids to like me, and I was just weird, okay? I was a kid that didn't like gym. I hated the gym. I hated prepubescent bodies running around sweating. I hated the aroma of Doritos. I hated the bashing of balls against the walls. I still hate that in a different sense. I've never gone balls to the walls on anything. I didn't want any of it. I didn't want a part in any of it. Lots of sounds, lots of smells, lots of sights, and I just couldn't wait for science to come around. So a pattern is starting to develop now because I don't seem to enjoy the same things that other children are enjoying. I didn't even really like recess. I didn't like recess until I realized that I could get, if I was persuasive enough and I made up a good enough story, I could get kids to play witch games with me. Unless we were acting out a play or something that I saw on ER the night before, I just really wasn't happy at recess. I didn't want the things where I would feel out of breath. That was just hard for me. Now, we got to take a moment. I have 3 drinks right now. Okay? This is kind of addict behavior. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I just want to say, if you have a pattern of self-regulating from without, right? That's kind of what addiction is you emotionally regulate with things outside of yourself instead of finding it deep within, that wellspring, right? And that's something that I am still working on. I need to get my hairspray. Hold on. All right. Now, I don't know why, but I decided that the bouffant, if you like this, don't get used to it. And if you don't, well, you're in luck because I probably won't do it again. It just seemed to fit this crazy attire. Don't worry. If you're worried and you're like, honey, your titties look like they're about to fall out, don't worry because I have already put pasties on these things. This is proofed. I have nipped it in the bud, if you will. And I only recently discovered that it is both nipped it in the bud or the butt. It's interchangeable. So you never have to feel embarrassed like I have many times. I've muted that last consonant because I didn't know if it was D or the double T. I still don't really understand that idiom. I don't know if it's relating to cigarettes, if it's relating to some kind of foreign flower. Lord, I tell you what. Listen, I thought we'd cover a couple things, like we'd do the origin story, and then I would share a couple artists that are impactful to me. Just so we feel like we have a lesson, right? Believe me, I could drone on and on and on about myself, but you'd grow weary, and eventually I would too, but though much later. Let me list a couple favorites for you. My favorite author is Vladimir Nabokov. He is most famous, I would say, for Lolita. However, he did some other amazing things. I think he's more critically acclaimed for Pale Fire, which is stunning, and Invitation to a Beheading. One that I haven't read yet, but I plan to read this year is See the Harlequin Dance. There's a collection called Letters to Vera, and it's letters to his lovely wife, and they're also very lovely, and it's fun to see him love her. My favorite poet is Emily Dickinson. Sometimes I feel self-conscious saying that, not that she's not brilliant and not that most people don't agree, but it's a little bit like saying you love Steven Spielberg. I mean, everybody likes something Steven Spielberg. It's I feel like, gosh, Emily Dickinson is sort of pop, right? It's a universal. I just have not quite found her modern day equivalent. I will totally admit that that's probably just a lack on my part of, I should do more research. I'm sure there are always going to be brilliant things out there in our time that we won't get to experience, which is the tragedy of life. Good God. Her hatred of fame is admirable. I wish I even had more of it, because anything in me that strives toward that, I think, is, if I could cut it out, I would, because I don't think it helps anything. Some people say it serves you to get to another level, but I think the most pure thing that you can want is to share art and laughter, and anything in there that desires for you to be the center of anything is kind of toxic. Moving right along, I pulled up some things because I was just like, and I pulled up Nip It in the Bud because I thought I could quickly find out the origin of that. Wait a minute. Sometimes a word that sounds like a right word and feels like the right word isn't actually the right word. It's an eggcorn. You don't need nip. You don't nip something in the butt if you want to stop it before it gets worse. Though, maybe that would work in some cases. No, you nip it in the bud. You figuratively pinch off the bud before it opens into a leaf. Oh my God. I done lied to y'all earlier. It is that you got to nip that in the bud. Nip it where it starts to be a bud. Now, when you hear it, you say, now why in the shit was that not intuitive? Why was I such a dumb shit that I kept saying nip it in the bud? Like what, stick your finger up somebody's ass? Put your tit up somebody's ass? Nip it in the bud. How intuitive is that? Well, we learn something new every day, don't we? Unless you're the King of the Hill cousin that just hangs around. What were we doing? I'm going to have to collect myself. Let's all breathe. That'll be distracting. And it'll seem like we're doing something. Okay, ready? In through the nose. Hey, let's break. Let's really get into character here.
Hi, I'm Sovereign Sammy. And today, I want to take you through a guided meditation. Now, before we go any further, I would suggest that you turn off all distractions around you, whether it be the light, whether it be your vibrator. Maybe it's right beside you right now. And really, it's going to be hard to focus if you're thinking about your groin, because that's root chakra things, and we are wanting to bring our vibrations up inside of ourselves. We will find that we don't have to have anything outside of us to do so. All right. Might I suggest a Cool Ranch Dorito? now is the time. Now would be the time to get a good, cool ranch Dorito in you. Actually, that pairs perfectly with the nacho or the Tabasco Slim Jim. Just make sure you've got a toilet handy. We don't want to get into a mess.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck that was, but thank you. Thank you, Sovereign Sammy. What was it? Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for coming, sweetie. I'm going to get another one of these, and I've got a toilet handy too. So, all right, I am back, honey. We got a crispy ass Coke Zero. Emily Dickinson. Obviously, you can see that my brain has short-circuited. But I've got something to get through. And that's why it's important to have something to do. It's important to have shit on your calendar because it's just too easy to spiral. It's too easy to go down the rabbit hole of how meaningless all this is. It's just too easy. Because it's true. What does any of this mean? I digress. Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson left school as a teenager, eventually living a reclusive life on the family homestead. There, she secretly created bundles of poetry. She wrote hundreds of letters. Due to a discovery by her sister Lavinia, Dickinson's remarkable work was published after her death. This is the thing that I think is most known about her. People know her as the recluse, and that she's known posthumously. Don't feel bad if you don't know what that means after she died. But I remember it as like posthuman. Dickinson was born December 10th, 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts. Her family had deep roots in New England. Her paternal grandfather, Samuel Dickinson, was known as the founder of Amherst College. Her father worked at Amherst and served as a state legislator. He married Emily Norcross in 1828, and they had 3 children. She had a brother and a sister. Her brother William, and then her sister Lavinia. And she was a great student. She went to Amherst Academy for 7 years, and she attended Mount Holyoke Female Seminary for a year. I don't think I knew that she went to seminary for a year. Though the precise reason for her departure from the academy in 1848 are unknown, theories offered say that her fragile emotional state may have played a role, and or that her father decided to pull her from the school. Dickinson ultimately never joined a particular church or denomination, steadfastly going against the religious norms at that time. And some of her letters to her sister, I think it's her sister, it might have been the friend that they speculate, might have been a lover. She writes a lot about conflict that she has with the way people believe and questions that she has about belief. And I admired her candor about that. I thought that was it feels very genuine. It's not only super thoroughly thought out and deep what she says, it just felt candid, and her letters are lovely to read if you ever just want to look up letters by Emily Dickinson, because most people obviously know her for her poetry, but she wrote these beautiful letters as well. We're not going to do all this shit because hell, So she began writing as a teenager. Her early influences were Leonard Humphrey, the principal of Amherst Academy, and a family friend named Benjamin Franklin Newton. Remember, everybody was named after the same damn person? One of them things. So the woman that is speculated to be her love interest is Susan Gilbert. All right, to me, this is the most interesting part in her life, because this is when she goes off the damn rails and she starts getting good at what she does, which, I mean, let's be be honest, that's what happens. I know, you're not supposed to play into the trope of the suffering artist. But, I mean, how about if tragedy strikes, you might as well milk that shit, right? So, that needs to be that's the family cow, and you got to get that, you got to jerk up that tit. You got to jerk them tits. I've jerked a tit now and then too. I broke a few hearts. Dickinson's seclusion during her late years has been the object of much speculation. Scholars have thought that she suffered from conditions such as agoraphobia, depression, and or anxiety, or may have been sequestered due to her responsibility as a guardian of her sick mother. Dickinson was also treated for a painful ailment of her eyes. After the mid-1860s, she rarely left the confines of the homestead. So, think about this. This is a woman in her mid-30s that ain't leaving her house. And it just hit me that that's not all that crazy. I mean, we all might have a little MED inside of us. I've had many D's inside of me, but I never thought it would be an MED. And now all the suffering feels like it could amount to something. It's also around this time, from the late 1850s to the mid-60s, that Dickinson was most productive as a poet, creating small bundles of verse known as fascicles. Yes, fascicles, without any awareness on the part of her family. So I think the fascicles I could liken it to a song and an album, like a single. It's like this separate piece, but it's part of a big collection, but it is a standalone. And we all know, like, Because I Couldn't Stop for Death, right? Dude, she died of heart failure. Okay, this woman, she was 55. That ain't that crazy for back then, but just, I mean, like, it's weird because she lived a full life. When we're talking about an internal life, she had such a rich internal life, but she ain't done shit, really. They say that she might have loved this priest, right? And that she was like engaged, and but nothing happened to her. But yeah, she had such a rich internal life. And so I'm glad we're doing this. I didn't even give my introduction that I was going to give. I just sang some stupid ass made up terrible song. This is called Hillbilly Pygmalion. And that is because growing up as that weird little kid, I was obsessed with My Fair Lady. I would just rewind it and watch it over and over and over and over till I knew basically every word, and would just like get in the car and repeat from the beginning. I remember distinctly 6 years old driving in the car with my mom saying, "Do you mind if I say the entire script of My Fair Lady to you?" She said, "Sure." Billy, go and find a kid. We're talking every single character. So it's odd. But I loved that movie. It became a part of me. I saw it when I was 5 years old, and I said, I want to do that. And she was like, what, be a gutter slut? I don't understand. It's like, no, mommy. I want to be pretty like that girl. She was like, well, that's easy. All you got to do is sell your soul to the movie industry. And I've done so, and that's why I'm so successful. Hell. Pygmalion is the original story that My Fair Lady is based off of. And it's the exact story of this gutter snipe in London who is transformed into a lady. And that feels like the theme of my whole life, is feeling like I had a chip on my shoulder and believing that one day I was going to turn into this beautiful swan, that I was going to be accepted by polite society. And so I've educated myself in a lot of ways, and I've read a lot, and I've done a lot of things, I think, to I think what started out as some hunger, some genuine hunger for knowledge, and some just to prove everybody wrong, to prove everybody that I wasn't just, a hick. But now I know the two are not mutually exclusive. I can snap into a Slim Jim and read Proust. This is Hillbilly Pygmalion. And that's why we're educating you on some of this shit. That's why we're reading Emily Dickinson, is because we're not a bunch of douchebags. Or you know what, better yet, we are. We are literate douchebags. But honest to God, who is douching besides my mom? I mean, this right here, this section is on fame. Fame is a fickle food upon a shifting plate, whose table once a guest, but not the second time is set, whose crumbs the crows inspect with ironic call, flap past to the farmer's corn, men eat of it and die. So, fame ain't even fit for crow's food. You can really see what she thought about fame here. It's her that if that's not disdain, then I don't know what is. Not even fit for the crows to eat. And I don't think she's shitting on crows there. Crows get a bad rap. And somebody somewhere was like, that's only because the Alfred Hitchcock movie. And I'm like, you're an idiot. You listen to one podcast a week and you think you got the secrets of life. That shit gets on my nerves. I listened to this podcast about lungs, and I've heard that you should hold in your breath for 10 seconds. I'm like, I would love for you to hold yours in for like 10,000. And let's see what happens. I love this one. The brain is wider than the sky. For put them side by side, let's start over. Shit happens. The brain is wider than the sky. For put them side by side, the one the other will include, with ease, and you beside. The brain is deeper than the sea, for hold them, blue to blue. The one the other will absorb, as sponges buckets do. The brain is just the weight of God, for lift them pound for pound, and they will differ, if they do, as syllable from sound. Now that right there is quite a Buddhist way of thinking, right? The realization that all of this is happening from within, right? Even everything out here is occurring in here. Saying the brain is such a magnificent thing. It's the most magnificent thing because it is the center of consciousness. And I guess if you want to get even deeper into that, there's really not a center of consciousness. But none of us need to have a panic attack today, okay? Let's just stop. She went from something very tangible, like a very... I mean, they're both concepts, right? But the fame thing is a very practical thing to this that is questioning the nature of thinking and reality and what we see and feel. She just didn't deal in, I mean, she's got beautiful things on nature. She has thought about everything. I mean, she really has. She covers so many things, and I'm like, is there, if you pick up a new poem by her, you're like, how shallow is my thought world when you look at this woman? But people who are poetry lovers also love her for like her dashes. Her style is exquisite, completely original, and she really is like a mother. Was it Harold Bloom? Is it Bloom? I think that was called her like our mother, and Whitman the father. And they both kind of have that energy about them, right? Not even just the fact that they're it's a dude and a woman. I mean, they just kind of embody that. And their poetry does that as well, because his is just so gusto, and it's like these, even though it has these erotic moments, you know, there's soft moments, but like, yeah, you know, there's like this powerful, there are these powerful bursts in Whitman. Sometimes when I'm needing some energy, I'll put that on and I'll just have my hey-ohs and my exclamation marks. I'll know that, I don't know, if I'm low T, I'll get me some Whitman. Let's tell a few funny stories. I had, I call him my trench coat cousin, was diagnosed with Asperger's. He just really had trouble relating to other people. And but he was also a very kind-hearted person. Like, he was a sweet guy. Like, my Hillbilly family didn't really know how to deal with it. They were just like, that's Philip. And I feel a lot of empathy for him now. But he had an imaginary friend named Soulbuster. And you can imagine, in a Pentecostal family, what kind of alarm bells that sounds off. He'd come in, Soulbuster said do this. One of the cutest stories is, apparently he went into my grandmother's, we had one of those she had one of those screened in porches that had the deep freeze in it. He went in there and he got out some fudgesicles. And he comes in there, says, Grandma, come here, look. Me and Soulbuster ate 17 fudgesicles. And Grandma would tell, and she'd go, and he did. I went and looked, and he did. But that was kind of like a very Philip thing to do, right? He didn't quite have that regulation. I remember Philip, when I turned 10, it was a big deal. He gave me $10. Now, he was my only cousin to give me anything. This is my cousin that I barely even talked to. But he wanted to have some sort of connection to me that day. And so he gave me that money, and I'll never forget it. I mean, it was sweaty, and it did have semen on it. And it looked like a Krispy Kreme donut. Listen, none of that is true. Philip was lovely, okay? He dug it up out of his trench coat. So he was a sweet guy, but he just had a hard time connecting. My family didn't have the tools to give him what he needed and deserved. My grandma, the way she would say shit, she just got so many words wrong, and it was so comical to me. I a little bit feel bad for how much I'd make fun of her to her face, but it was just so irresistible. I mean, I was in this play called Steel Magnolias, and I got written up in the paper about it, and my grandma said, looky here, Andy Marie's in Steel Magnolias. Where did the MC come in? Is this the fast food of the thespian world? One time I told my grandma I was a thespian, and she did bawl her eyes out. And I said, no, Grandma, it means I'm in the theater. She said, I know. That's awful. I didn't know we raised an idiot. It's been real, and it's been fun. And at times, it's even been real fun. But at times, I thought I had an aneurysm. Okay? So, we're going to have to cut this. If you've made it this far, hell, I appreciate you. Let me know. Reach out to me. If you want to leave a nice comment, if you want to leave a bad one, that apparently helps algorithmically. This might be my husband. No, I'm not live.